Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle with ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
All right, good morning and welcome to Africa's finest breakfast show, Global Morning on Global Television. My name is Anthony Momodi. Welcome to a very beautiful day. It's the 15th day of November 2024, and we're in with a big shout as we celebrate being alive today and being in your homes this morning. Today is a very important day in the United Nations calendar. It's the International Day for Prevention Against International Crimes across all boards. So we'll be celebrating that. But I'm not alone to celebrate this very important and historic day. I've got someone who's going to be adding lots of poise and a lot of enlightenment and, of course, discourse in today's edition. He's not a person, but my co-anchor, Ramsey. I call him Ramsey Noah, but he tells me, no, I'm Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Yes, proudly Benue. Good morning, Ramsey.
Yes, good morning, my colleague. Good morning, Anthony. Good morning, everyone that is watching Global Television right now. I think it's a good thing to be alive,
True.
You know, because when there is life, there is hope, irrespective of what anyone is going through. And some persons feel so excited, okay, when they get their day started with Global Television, because a lot of inspiration comes to you, a lot of encouragement comes to you, a lot of information comes to you. And so many things happen to you, especially when you get your day started on a good note. And it's good to have all of you on the program today. Don't be surprised that Anthony is looking this Friday. For the weekend. Tomorrow is something else for him. Next tomorrow, I don't need to talk about that. Okay. But same thing with you, because a lot of people are so excited when it's Friday.
Sure.
And some persons will not even go to work. Yeah, TGIF. Thank God it is a Friday. So thank God it's Friday, and thank God that you are here with us today on the program.
All right, like we told you, today is International Day for the Prevention of and Fight Against All Forms of Transnational Organized Crime. It's held every 15th of November, and this year the team is pulling together to push back, united against organized crime. Just for you to know that organized crime steals, corrupts and kills, it's time we pull together to push back. International Day for the Prevention of and Fight Against All Forms of Transnational Organized Crime calls for united global action. The devastating impact of organized crime threatens lives, destabilizes communities, and hinders economic and social development. But despite these challenges, there is hope. This day serves as a rallying point for action, demonstrating that collective efforts by government, the private sector, civil society, and individuals can achieve real change. Hashtag Stop Organized Crime. Agbo, let's look at transnational crimes. It is a very big one and really disturbing, and we see it happen, especially when we talk about insurgency and terrorism.
Yeah, I think almost everywhere in the world, this is one of the major issues that they have. If today is being meant to market, to at least register in the heart of the people the harm and the danger that it brings, and the disadvantage of it, and how people should watch out for it, things to do to curb this situation. it's very important. When something is transnational, you know what it means.
Yes, it means
from
surpasses one nation to the other.
You hear of ISIS, you hear of Boko Haram, you hear of Ishbet, a lot of them around the world. But then I think it's so important for us to know that for a nation to grow, for a people to grow, for a society to be formidable, for economy of a nation to thrive, these are the major things that we need to do everything possible to stop at all levels. And how do we get these things arrested? Because you can never be looking at a problem without looking at the root cause of the problem. First of all, you know why these things are happening, then who is making it happen, and what should be the solution, because whatever the foundation, it's not known. It's difficult to fight it. It's difficult to eradicate it. So what we should be doing worldwide, this is international, okay? This is worldwide, this is global. What we should be doing is an effort for every other nation to support nations who have these issues, because as a matter of fact, technological development has taken over the society. It's the 21st century. You shouldn't fold your hand to say, well, it's not my country, I should relax, because by the time you allow it to escalate, we're calling transnational here.
Sure.
By the time you allow it to escalate in a particular country, you don't know what will bring it to your country. So what we should do is to make sure the youths especially are taken proper care of. The youths are engaged, they are not idle, people are not out of school, so many things that we need to do. So these are the kind of things that I expect the people in the forefront of this celebration to do. I think the theme is so all-encompassing, and it's good for me, but then we should push it to the society such that it will be at least good enough for the people to digest, because it's one thing for you to push a particular thing, and it's another thing for that thing you're pushing to be absorbable, domesticated, to be among the people that one can refer to from time to time. More so, that is something that is harmful to the society, that needs to be curbed at all levels.
All right, well said there, Ramsey, talking about it, and means trying to domesticate it so that those in the states, local governments, and rural areas would understand in terms of getting this fight won. All right, we're still looking at issues from the global perspective, and this time we're coming down to the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria, where the EU is in the news. The European Union has launched an initiative to reintegrate 417,661 out-of-school children in the northwestern parts of Nigeria. That's a laudable move by the EU. This was disclosed by the consortium led by Toby Ransomed at the official launch of the Accelerating Basic Education and Livelihood Opportunities for Children and Youth in Northwest Nigeria program held in Dutse, Jigawa State. She noted that the high rate of out-of-school children in the region requires holistic approach from all relevant stakeholders to ensure these children reach their potential. I think this is a very laudable move by the EU, especially if we look into the fact that we're having new terrorist groups popping up from the northern region, and the best way we can save our future is ensure that these children remain in school and get their livelihoods, so that they don't get attracted and pushed into these, terrorist organizations.
Yeah, I think that's true. And one of the things that we should be even talking about is getting the children out of the street. Like I'll keep saying, an idle hand is the workshop of the devil. And when a heart is empty, so whatever comes around fills it in, whether negative or positive.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we need to get people engaged. And the foremost thing that we need to do as a people, as a government that is mindful of the economy, mindful of the society, mindful of the people, is to make sure people are not out of school. Because I could remember the former president, in the person of Olusegun, His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, said, allowing children to be on the street, out of school, is another way of breeding terrorists in the nation, which is very true. It's not far from the truth. Some persons feel he talks so much sometimes, but then that's not it. You need to save that, because the more these children are out of school, not just the Northeast, not just in the North, but everywhere in the country, when children are out of school, so many things happen. You know, the peer pressure plays in, it plays out rather, because they will want to experiment one or two things. And that is how lives and properties, the society will be endangered. We have more of societal decadence when we have these children out of school. So this is very laudable. The initiative by the European Union, it's laudable. It's good. I think every nation should at least try as much as possible to embrace this initiative.
All right, just to let you know that Nigeria is with over 10 million primary school-aged children not in school, and approximately from that amount of 10 million, we have 25% of the girls and 10% of boys in the country have been victims of sexual violence, and that's why the European Union, led by Mrs. Toby, stated that the program aims to increase the access to safe, quality, and inclusive alternative and accelerated education programs for as much as 324,000 young girls and boys, as well as 32,400 persons with disabilities, supporting their transition into formal and non-formal education. So it's kudos to the European Union, and we hope the government of these various states will do this, especially Jigawa State, to ensure that this laudable move is continued. Still talking about education, let's take you to the tertiary institution where something not so pleasant is happening, as many undergraduate students from the University of Calabar residing in the male and female hostels are crying and raising alarm over several cracks on the walls of their hostels. They express fears that as these heavy rains persist in parts of Calabar metropolis, the walls may cave in. This is quite disturbing, but we know that we've got an institution, government institution, that has been doing a lot in trying to support tertiary institutions across a board, and I think probably we should draw the attention to that, talking about TED Fund that has been doing some great job as regards tertiary institutions. But are you worried that a school as notable as University of Calabar is having such issue playing out?
Well, I was privileged to attend the strategic meeting of beneficiary heads of beneficiary institutions at the TED Fund office, and so many things were discussed and issues were raised concerning schools, old schools that needs renovation, structures that needs renovation. And TED Fund has been doing fantastically well, and some persons testified, they attested to the fact that TED Fund is doing a great job. But then coming to the school like Unical, Unical is one of the oldest schools. Talk about UI, talk about Unical, talk about schools like UNN, Unijos, talk about BUK, talk about ABU.
I was waiting to hear one more school.
Well, and of
you have
course,
to call that school. That'll be injustice, and you won't go back there if you don't call that school. Don't worry, just try to. Don't worry, I'll try to.
And a lot of other schools. But as it is, I think it's very important that the school is crying out. This is Unical crying out here, but then there are a lot of other schools, both federal and state schools, that are actually having issues with hostel, especially schools that don't have enough hostels.
Does the Benue State University have enough?
Yes, Benue State University, I think TED Fund is doing a lot there, and the Benue State government are also playing their own parts to make sure the school is good enough and conducive for learning, as it has to do with structures, you know, the mass communication department, in fact, social sciences, the management department, and every other department. You know, they are doing fine. They are trying their best, but then no best is good enough, because if you look at the number of students that write JAMB yearly, you will know that no amount of structure will be too much for any university right now. So I think it's a good one, and the authorities should actually look into it. I remember TEDFund taking note of it, and they said, well, instead of building new structures, it will be important to even renovate the old structures that are dilapidated. And I think it was something that everyone accepted, and they said it is going to be done. So within a very short period of time, that will be done, and at least the students will have reasons to smile, because if you want to study and you want to do well, you need a very conducive environment, and that's one area that the schools in the developed worlds have advantage over schools in developing countries. But then I think it's so good that the students are crying out.
All right, well said. Now, we've done a lot of education talk, pinpoint here this morning. Let's talk about two more issues before we begin to look at what the papers are saying. This morning, we're taking to where the elections, the final election, event of the year is taking place. We're taking to Ondo State, and it's the big talking point says the Deputy Inspector General of Police, talking about Abiodun Alabi, has said the Nigerian police force is ready to ensure a peaceful and credible elections in Ondo State. But we know that there were some, skirmishes in the Idere where the PDP members were were attacked. And for you, there was this issue raised on the desk yesterday as regards each time the police force say they're deploying personnel. They tell you they've deployed 35 to 36,000 for Ondo State yesterday. But the election observer from South Africa, in person of Jackie Pele, who spoke with us, said he does not think the numbers tally. The number of personnel in Ondo State were up to 35,000, even 30,000. Do you think this is something that should probably be checked on? Are we seeing deliberate disparity in figures as a way to perpetrate a certain disparity when it comes to financial accounting? And why do you think that occurs? And if we had 36,000 policemen in Ondo State, how come there was skirmishes in Idiare and it wasn't nipped in the bud?
Well, some of these things happened, and to an extent, sometimes the security operatives are handicapped.
Why did I say they are handicapped?
Because they might not be everywhere at the same time.
Sure.
But then, as it is, if on paper they said 35,000 police officers, security operatives were deployed to Ondo State, and an observer said the number he has seen is not up to, probably every security officer is not on ground yet. The election is
the landmass of Ondo, not that massive.
The landmass of Ondo are not that massive, but then for security reasons, before such deployments are being done, there must be some security situations, you know, and you know how elections happen in this part of the world. Anything is possible. So the number of security operatives can never be said to be too much. You can see what happened in Idere, where you are saying now. You know, these are issues. This one is just one out of many. We don't know what will happen between now and tomorrow. You know, the electoral materials need to be protected at every polling unit. Then transporting it needs to be transported. So there is no number of security operatives that will be too much. But then someone coming out to say, well, the numbers we have seen are not up to what has been said. Were they counted? Did the observer count them, or you just use eye to size up the number of security operatives you are seeing where you are? Has the observer gone round the whole
don't forget that this
local government council, the polling units, and all of that.
They've got personnel, field officers across the local government area. We know there are 18 local government areas, and we're looking at 3 senatorial districts, and we're looking at 203 wards and 3,933 polling units. So 36,000 for just 3,933 units. Those amounts of personnel should be very visible. If comparing 36,000 to 3,000.
But did he see some security operatives at all?
He did see, but he
right.
said 36,000 and what is on ground does not tally.
I think if we are told the number that has been deployed, probably this person has been deployed already, and some of them may have arrived. Okay, and let me tell you something about security operatives.
Yeah.
Every one of them may not be in uniform.
True.
Okay,
True.
There might be some that are intelligent officers that may not be visible.
And who disguise?
That may be in the midst of the people.
True.
Okay, so disputing the number that the IG or whoever said they've deployed is not something too important to me. As a matter of fact, what I'm saying is we should make sure, all right, the security situation is calm. All right, we have security operatives to make sure there is no violence, there is no snatching of ballot boxes, there is no malpractices, vote selling. INEC have told us already that they've learned their lesson from Edo State, so we're expecting something very fantastic from the Ondo election. We have a reporter on ground there, Kike Okere, that has been feeding us with a whole lot, and it has been in the news. So there is some level of so many informations coming. So if you want to know what is happening in Ondo State, just stay connected to Global Television. Everything is being covered. The level of transparency, the take home, and whatever we will need from there will be there. But then what we should know is that Ondo State's election is different from Edo State. Someone made a statement. He said some of the things that played out because someone asked the question that what time do you think the election in Ondo State will be concluded? Unlike Edo State, where it took a little time, and there were some one or two.
Did it take a little time? It came out at the right time.
Okay, it came out at the right time. You were there.
Yeah, I was there.
You were there. Then someone said, well, Ondo may be faster. Okay, Ondo may be faster, but we don't know how it's going to play out all the way. INEC have already promised us.
When you say faster, does it mean INEC acquired new devices that are faster?
They said they've learned their lessons, so meaning things will maybe smoother than it was in Edo State. We're talking of technology here. You can't dispute the fact that there might be failure in the area of machines, which you can't take away.
It didn't come out faster in Endo. That's what INEC is saying.
INEC didn't say so. INEC said
they're going to be faster.
No, I didn't say INEC, meaning you were not listening. I said there was a conversation between two persons.
Are these stakeholders from these two different
These
states?
are just two concerned Nigerians, patriotic Nigerians are talking.
Okay.
And, in every statement, there are things you pick out as a journalist. So while they were speaking, I picked that out of the statements they made. How it's going to be in Edo is going to be easier in Ondo State compared to Edo. That's what they meant. And now that INEC have even said, well, we've taken cue, we'll know how to put some of the wrongs right now, looking at what happened in Edo State. So anyone coming out as a Nigerian to say that has not made a wrong statement. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying stakeholders. I didn't say INEC. The only thing INEC chairman said is that they've learned their lessons from what happened in Edo State.
All right. All right, well said. Before we run into our papers, my producer says we have to talk about this, and even the god of soccer would not be happy if we didn't talk about this. Our darling Super Eagles were in action last night, and you know the result.
So why won't you say that when you have two sports presenters on Global?
That's why I said even the god of soccer would not be happy if we did not talk about our darling Super Eagles. They were in action. Do you think the Super Eagles were truly super last night?
Well, I don't know, but then
they were almost
some person said the message that came from Libya Libya were begging that Nigeria should try as much as possible to win their remaining 2 games.
After what they did to Nigeria.
Someone said something yesterday. He said, oh, Libya is now begging Nigeria, Super Eagles, to win
so
their 2 matches so that they can have a place, because Libya actually won their match yesterday, 1-0.
And that was an upset. Yeah, it was an upset. Beating Amavubi,
my brother,
in Kigali was an upset, because looking at rankings in football of recent, Rwanda has been on the up, especially under 17, under 20. They've been doing
Libya
well
is just coming up.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. But for them to be able to beat Rwanda, I didn't see that coming.
The Libya team are not bad per se.
No, they aren't. They were African champions for Chan, remember?
Okay.
Yeah.
The game they even played in Uyo, if you watch that game,
was tactical.
It was tactical. Then look at the game they played yesterday. So, if not because of the ill treatment and the bad belly thing they did to the Super Eagles, Nigerians will want to throw their wings, support behind them, looking at their place in football in Africa.
We have loads of Nigerians in Libya.
In Libya too. Our people schooling there and all of that.
Are people in Libya and all of that. So as it is, that game yesterday, up to now, if you ask me, I will tell you that 1-1, that draw, sharing the point, is a lose
for Nigeria. Nigeria lost that match. That's
what I feel.
Because,
why? Because you felt we were supposed to beat the cheaters.
On the sports show yesterday, I think my guest even said we are supposed to have more goals than we had. All right.
But do you agree that the Eagles actually did play well? And also, if you take into consideration the surface of the pitch, it was a wet surface. It wasn't a very easy surface.
This is not the first time they are playing on that pitch.
That's not the first time, but don't forget that that's their adopted home ground, and you have to give them kudos. For me, I felt
tell you something?
The Eagles created chances. Yes, they didn't take it. Remember that gliding header, the first chance Osimhen had, their gliding header, especially after we had conceded. I felt if Osimhen had buried that
Anthony,
ball,
you are a sport analyst, you are a sport presenter. In football, the tactical performance, you can't take that away. The Eagles, they did well, they played well, but then how well is a football match without the 3 points? That's what we're saying. And looking at the people they played with, we're talking about the Cheetahs here. We're talking about Benin Republic. We're not talking about Ghana. We're not talking about South Africa. We're not talking about Tunisia. And looking at the form that we have, the crop of players that we have, their international standard, award-winning players. Look at Lukman, look at Osimhen, and a host of others. That match we're supposed to win it, except for any other reason. That one goal didn't go down well with me. There is nothing anyone will say that I will take it. At least, even if it is 2-1, allowing the people to have a consolation goal, at least to have that one goal, is good enough. But then having them to score first, then we struggle to equalize. Hey, come on, that's not good for us. You know, there are certain things that have been taken into consideration when it comes to ranking. Okay, there are things that have been taken into consideration when ranking to be released. I don't know if you are aware. So there are countries you play with, and your performance, will tell so much. Well, I'm done, but we don't have all the time. I think we need to go to the papers because it's almost 30 minutes down the line.
Not to forget that we played against Benin Republic. They're a West African team. They're one of our rival teams. They are being coached by our former coach, General, so it means he's tactical aware of how the Super Eagles play. We also played away from home. We played on a surface that was wet. The conditions weren't so easy. The Super Eagles
created away from home.
No,
did you play in Benin Republic? That game wasn't in Benin Republic.
Allow me to finish. That's why I allowed you to finish. Whether you like it or not, there's a reason it's called adopted home ground. It means that's where they train, that's where they've been playing. And if you know football, just like you know your studio, there's something about creating there's this spiritual bond with whoever is called your home ground. And for the Cheetahs, they are playing good football. they are at one of their best generations of Benin Republic. So you cannot say the Super Eagles didn't do well just because they didn't get all 3 points.
I didn't say they didn't do well. I said they did
well,
but we didn't get the 3 points, which is what Nigerians were looking for.
Yes.
Don't get it wrong.
They played well.
They played well. I said that.
Okay.
Because you play with Benin Republic and you don't play well.
And the truth is that we're playing a team that is very tactical. Those players are very good on the ball. They're ball jugglers. They're very tactical. They're skillful. Don't forget, you're playing a West African team. If you were playing another region and say, okay, you didn't get, it's a different thing. But
these excuses are not good enough.
They're not excuses. You have to respect.
They are not good enough.
Opponent. You must not.
Nobody said they didn't play well. They played well,
matches,
but nearly does not play bad. It's not how far, it's how well.
Is needed most. Is what they
got. I know we've qualified already. We've qualified. If you are telling me that maybe they didn't bring all their mojo because we've already qualified, it's understandable.
But
for you to say, well, giving excuses because they played in the wrong
Black
field.
Stars couldn't beat Sudan.
No, don't Black Star. The Black Star of Ghana.
Black Star won the Cup of Nations more than Nigeria.
Look at what is happening to Black Star. In this African Cup of Nations, Black Star is nowhere to be found. Are you aware?
Okay, so what's wrong with Black Star? Are you saying they're not a big African team?
They're a big African team, but you know what is happening to them right now.
Great.
You know how many players were out of
the performance and the result gotten by the Super Eagles.
No, don't get it wrong. I am not saying they didn't do well. They didn't do well. They did well, but then they were supposed to get that 3 points, except they were relaxed because we've already qualified. We expected more from them than what we saw. They were good, that you can't take away. But then drawing with Benin Republic, the Cheetahs of Benin Republic, was not too good for me. That's it.
All right, personal opinion. The Super Eagles, congratulations to our darling Super Eagles for qualifying for Morocco 2025. And we'll go for a quick break. When we return from this break, we'll be looking at what the papers are saying this morning. This is what you get when you're on the live show, and Africa's finest breakfast show, Global Morning. Stay with us.
Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable.
with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bonds, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
So good to still have you there on Global Morning today. Now to the headlines. What are the stories making round today on the national dailies? Our first point of call this morning will be the Daily Trust newspaper. On the Daily Trust, I'll begin with the big story. What's the big story all about? The federal government proposes a 47.9 trillion naira budget for 2025. Two riders to that story, and I'll quickly take the riders. Apex crude oil at $75, exchange rate 1,400 naira to $1. The second rider says a proposal too ambitious will balloon debt, inflation figures. That's coming from the experts. And more headlines still coming from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. This one says Nigeria eyes 57.4 billion naira dollars accrued revenue as NNPC surpasses 1.8 million BPD. Then this one says details of that you can actually get on page 19 of the Daily Trust newspaper. More headlines from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. UBA to raise 239.4 billion naira through rights issue. Details on page 6. A coalition condemns arrest of women for criticizing banditry in Sokoto. I take that again. Coalition condemns arrest of women for criticizing banditry in Sokoto State. Details on page 24 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Well, I don't know why someone should be arrested for criticizing banditry. I don't know. But then...
Something is suspicious there.
Something is suspicious. If you arrest someone for criticizing banditry, it means you are for banditry. Then it means you are in support of banditry.
Unless probably she made a mention of certain persons' name in the government who she cannot substantiate to prove that, okay, this person is involved. And so the person calls the security agencies into the matter, and the fact that she couldn't prove that he or she is involved or has any leaning towards that banditry issue, that's the only reason why you can arrest someone. If not, like you rightly pointed, it will mean that you're saying you're in support of banditry.
Well, that's Nigeria for you, because in Nigeria you hear that some persons, you remember at a point, some persons were actually fingered as being sponsors of terrorism, banditry, and all of that. But at the end of the day, you don't get to hear anything.
The government has never really come out completely to mention names. They would say, we know people. Highly placed
Who are
people.
those persons? So when you hear that a woman has been arrested for criticizing banditry, then there are questions that should come to mind. If you want to get the details of that story, pick a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper and quickly swing to page 24. You will get the details of that story right there. More headlines are still coming from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. This one says concerns over cash squeeze in states despite increased CBN supply. Some riders to that story, about 3 riders. POS operators, customers accuse banks of rationing. Grains merchants mop up notes to visit local markets. The last rider to that story says a shortage in Ondo ahead of governorship election. Shortage in Ondo ahead of a governorship election. You should be expecting that, all right, because a lot of money may be exchanging hands, probably to transport people from one location to the other. For campaign. When I say money exchanging hand, don't get it twisted, all right? People could be transported to places where they want to vote. That could probably result to shortage in Ondo ahead of governorship election, because we've not heard of anyone buying votes yet. We only heard that some persons were given rice and gari, and that may amount to something else. But someone on my program here, I think Global Morning, said, well, people are hungry, but then giving people food to eat is not an electoral malpractice. That's what he said. I don't know what's your own school of thought. And that's going to be the size of the headlines from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning as Anthony brings us the next point of call.
All right, let's go to The Guardian. The Guardian is next for review. Let's see the headlines on The Guardian's the big stories there. We've got oil-backed loans. OPEC quotas threatening federal government's 47.9 trillion naira budget plan is the big story there. Oil-backed loans and OPEC quotas threatening federal government's 47.9 trillion naira budget plan. That's a big story you find on page 6 of The Guardian. Moving on, other big headline stories from The Guardian says NCC restricts mobile network operators to 7 tariff plans from 369. The NCC restricting mobile operators having just their tariff plans to be 7 rather than 369. That big story is on the page 18 of The Guardian newspaper. We've got oil production to hit 2 million barrels per day in 2 months, says NNPCL. That's the headline story there on page 3 of The Guardian. Oil production to hit 2 million barrels per day in 2 months. Other big stories there. We've got federal government secures $134 million AFDB loan to boost food production is the headline story making the rounds. And from the human rights sector, we've got National Human Rights Commission reports 427,000 human rights violations in October. National Human Rights Commission reports 427,000 human rights violations in October. That big story is on page 7 of The Guardian. All right, other big stories. We've got military and others will stay neutral. Chief of Defense Staff vows as INEC distributes materials in Ondo. You can find that big story on page 6 of The Guardian. And we've got $5.5 billion recapitalization calls heightened as vandals destroyed 119 electricity towers. Page 3 is where you find that very interesting story. Then we've got one more story we're going to be looking at. On page 3 comes the story that says Atiku advises Tinubu to focus on governance, not 2027. Focus on governance, not 2027 polls. Atiku to Tinubu, that's the story there. Then on the top of The Guardian, we've got the pictures of those vying for the top seat of the Ondo State. We've got Ondo State Guba election is the kicker there. Systematic distrust, voter party, economy hardship, may mar poll. Very disturbing there. It says systematic distrust, voter party, economic hardship, may mar polls. Talking about the Ondo polls. That's the big stories making the rounds from The Guardian newspaper. I've got it's very important looking at this Ondo polls, talking about the economic hardship, systematic distrust, that's looking at INEC, and then the voter party. These are issues being raised that might alter the elections in Ondo State. It's very, very worrisome that these issues still play out every time we've got elections in the country. And we hope that someday we'll be able to go past this. So it means INEC has to do more to ensure that the voter apathy and also the distrust in the system is put at the barest minimum. Then the issue of oil production hit 2 million barrels per day in next 2 months is also questionable, especially with OPEC. Just yesterday we got the story saying OPEC says the World Bank and the other international organizations saying from their statistics, Nigeria is producing 1.3 million barrels per day, not 1.8 as claimed by the federal government. And now NNPC is coming to tell us that in 2 months they're going to hit 2 million barrels per day. So there's always this disparity when it comes to the oil and gas sector, and it's very disturbing. And I think there's need for transparency by the government and the relevant stakeholders, because each time the World Bank or OPEC gives us statistics, it's always at variance with what the federal government is telling us. So let's move on. Ramsey, you've got the next papers for review.
Yes, before we go in for the AM news, let's quickly go through the Vanguard newspaper this morning, where we have some very striking headlines. This on the kicker says, food. Federal government secure AFD beats $134 million loan for farmers. CDS to DIOs. Tinubu relying on you over national stability, food security. Details on page 2. Crude, that's the kicker. NNPC Limited achieves 1.8 million barrel per day production targets, 2 million barrel per day. I think that's what Anthony just talked about. Then the big story on the Vanguard newspaper says 2025 budget, that's the kicker. FEC okays 47.9 trillion naira. Federal government to borrow 13.8 trillion naira. Some riders to that story. The first rider says a budget assumption. This one says exchange rate 1,400 naira to $1. Oil price benchmarked $75. This one says oil production 206 BPD, that is a barrel per day. Experts fault assumption, describe budget as ambitious. All right, IMF reports Nigeria absent in good news, include in bad news. Details of that you can get on page 20, that Nigeria is absent in good news. The news you hear from Nigeria is bad news. All right, then two other stories on the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Okpebolo freezes state's bank account, reverse ministry. The action has started in Edo State. Okpebolo freezes state's bank account, reverses ministry. Just three riders to that story. How I was elected governor. Okay, the second rider says give ultimatum on coal clashes. Bas Group. Then this one says Pandev, congratulations governor. They congratulate the governor of Edo State. You can see some picture stories where we have the big wigs, all right, where you have the president, the vice president as they meet Yuri Emmanuel and others. That's the picture story on the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Well, our time is far spent. We'll make way for the AM news, which is going to be coming after this break. Then when we return, we'll get into the discussion proper on Global Morning. Do stay with us.
Wind is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
And welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Anthony Momodu. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and free to air on Nikonsat. President Bola Tinubu presided over the 20th meeting of the Federal Executive Council at the State House, Abuja. Although earlier gatherings swayed between Mondays and Wednesdays, this is the Council's first meeting on a Thursday since the passing of the former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Turid Lagbaja. Last week's meeting, initially scheduled for November 6th, was postponed over the passing of the Army Chief. Shortly after the proceedings began, it was observed that representatives of the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning filing in for a presentation to the Council, which may not be unconnected to the preparations for Tinubu's 2025 budget presentation. Justice Marian Anini of the Federal Capital Territory High Court in Maitama, Abuja, has adjourned the arraignment of former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello to November 27, 2024, regarding fresh 16-count charges brought against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Bello, alongside two others, Shuaibu Oricha and Abdusalami Hudu, faces charges relating to criminal breach of trust and conspiracy to commit an offense totaling 110.4 billion naira. At the resumed hearing, EFCC counsel Jamiu Agoro requested an adjournment to ensure Bello's presence in court for arraignment, as the court order issued on October 3rd had not yet expired. The prosecution said the 30-day window provided by the court for summons was still active. President Bola Tinubu has called on Ondo State residents to come out en masse to vote for the All Progressive Congress on the 16th of November 2024. President Tinubu, who was represented by his Vice President Kashim Shettima, stated this at the campaign for Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa of Ondo State. Uyi Agbomofwegbe tells us more.
Vice President Kashim Shettima arrived in Akure for the grand finale of APC campaign for its governorship candidate ahead of Saturday's election in Ondo State. Shettima, who arrived at Akure Airport at noon, was accompanied by several governors and members of the National Assembly. He is billed to visit the palace of Deji of Akure, Oba Ogunlade Alade Tonyibo, before going to the campaign venue. The Vice President called for vote for the party for the good work to continue.
Cast your vote. Your vote is your voice. On Saturday, I will urge you to come out en masse. The President has good tidings for the people of Ondo State, the people of the Southwest, and the people of Nigeria.
Speaking at the event, the All Progressives Congress governorship aspirant and the governor of Ondo State, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, reiterated his commitment to do more if elected into office.
I assumed office in the last 10 months. Myself and my deputy, Dr. Owolabi Adelami, who is also from Owo. You know what we have been able to do within the short period that we assume office. We are not to make promises, but you know what we have done and you know what we can do. I want to tell you that by the time we return by 24th of February 2025, we will do more than what we have been able to do in the last 10 months.
The national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Abdullahi Ganduje, says the motive is to encourage supporters to come out on Saturday, 16 November, to exercise their franchise for the party.
We are here in order to see you. We are here in order to motivate you. And luckily enough, we found that you are already motivated. We are here in order to present our flag to the flag bearer of our party for the governorship candidate for the governorship election of Ondo governorship election.
Ganduje later presented the party's flag to the governor, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, and his running mate, Olaide Adelami. Uyi Agumofwegbe, reporting for Global Television News.
In a related development, the Defense Headquarters, DHQ, has confirmed that troops have been deployed in significant numbers for the Ondo State governorship election. The DHQ stated that their deployment was to support the Nigerian police force and ensure a smooth election in the state. In a statement, the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Buba Edward, said the presence of troops would ensure that voters can exercise their franchise without harassment. Elsewhere, the Defense Headquarters says troops' offensives have depleted the capacity of the Islamic State for West Africa Province terrorists in northeast Nigeria. It says the impact has forced the terror group to on a recruitment drive for new fighters across the region. Further adding that terrorists in the northwest also suffered the same fate and were on membership recruitment on social media. Giving updates on successes across various theaters of operation in the past week, the defense spokesman said troops killed 88 terrorists, arrested 228 criminals, and rescued 181 kidnapped victims. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, says troops recovered 84 high-caliber weapons, comprising 34 AK-47 rifles, 15 fabricated rifles, 11 Dane guns, 5 fabricated revolver pistols, 8 locally made pistols, and 3 pump-action guns and 1 Magnum pump-action. The federal government has announced that it will complete the digitization of the 774 local government headquarters across the 36 states by 2027. The Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Dr. Bosun Tijani, disclosed this at a stakeholders retreat on Project 774 Connectivity in Abuja. Tijani explained that the project would be executed in collaboration with other agencies under the ministry's purview. He stated that the government aimed to digitalize all the remaining local government areas in the country by 2027. The Zamfara State chapter of the All Progressive Congress has praised President Bola Tinubu for ignoring calls for the dismissal of his Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawali, stating that the allegation he sponsored some of the bandits terrorizing the state was unfounded. The party also urged the current governor, Dauda Lawal, to consider deploying both the kinetic and non-kinetic approaches used by his predecessor to combat the worsening insecurity in the state. The appeal came 2 days after hundreds of women and youth from the state staged a protest at the Department of State Services headquarters in Abuja over the heightened insecurity in Zamfara. The protesters also blamed the immediate past governor of the state for the activities of the bandits, which they claimed were a result of his alleged collaboration with them during his administration. Ondo State Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa has reaffirmed his administration's commitment to the development of riverine communities, especially the oil-producing areas of the state. The governor stated this when he officially commissioned the rehabilitated 32.7-kilometer Alape Junction, Araromi Seaside Road in Alaje local government area, a project of the Ondo State Oil Producing Areas Development Commission. Kikelomo Okere tells us more.
Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa highlighted the government's ongoing effort in transforming the oil-producing area through critical infrastructure projects aimed at alleviating long-standing challenges. The governor says his administration aimed to improve essential facilities, including roads, electricity, clean water, land reclamation, and shoreline protection, with a view to reducing or eliminating the long-standing challenges that the community face in the region. He further reiterated his administration's commitment to educational advancement, saying plans are underway to renovate 21 public primary and secondary schools in the area, while donating 2,000 twin local desks and chairs with English and science textbooks to the community schools.
Our administration's commitment to transforming the lives of people all through Ondo State, but especially in the oil-producing areas of our dear state, because that is where I'm from, through infrastructure and human capital development, geared towards making life more bearable for our people in the riverine communities of Ondo State.
The Secretary of Ondo State Oil Producing Area Development Commission, Princess Abike Bayo Ilawole, stressed the transformative impact of the new infrastructure on the lives of the people in the oil-producing area of Ondo State. She expressed deep appreciation to Governor Aiyedatiwa for his unwavering commitment to developing the riverine communities and prioritizing projects that directly improve the quality of life for residents.
We celebrate not just a road, but a vital link that will enhance connectivity, attract new business, that open doors to economic growth, enhance ease of transportation, foster greater opportunity closer to our people, and contributing significantly to the prosperity and the growth of the oil-producing area of Ondo State.
She further acknowledged that the road represents a lifeline for the communities, which will help in connecting to economic opportunities and enhancing access to essential services. From Akure, Kikelomo Okere, Global Television News.
Members of the Lakurawa armed group have been retreating as the military ramps up coordinated ground and air attacks on the group's camps across Kebbi and Sokoto states, following an attack by the Lakurawa group on the Mera community in Ugi local government area of Kebbi State, which claimed 17 lives. The army headquarters deployed a contingent of soldiers to the area. Upon arrival in Birin Kebbi, the troops, according to Abdullahi Idris Zuru, media aide to the Kebbi governor, met with Deputy Governor Abubakar Umar Tafida at the cabinet office before proceeding to Mera. Zuru said the troops succeeded in dislodging the bandits and recovering several rustled cattle left behind as the attackers fled. The Zamfara state government has lamented what it described as the alarming number of ghost workers in the state civil service. The government said the situation has become worrisome and perplexing. Addressing newsmen in Gusau, the state head of service, Barrister Ahmad Liman, said that nobody can exactly say the number of civil servants in the state. He further stated that the ghost workers are mainly in the health and education sectors. According to him, a verification exercise is still ongoing. The government official explained that the verification exercise will be concluded at the end of November 2024, after which a committee on salary will be constituted. Pensioners in Ekiti State have expressed their joy over the new lease of life senior citizens in the state are enjoying under Governor Biodun Oyebanji's administration. The chairman of the Nigerian Union of Pensioners Ekiti State Branch, Joel Akinola, stated that the release of 4.6 billion naira by Oyebanji for the payment of outstanding gratuities to state and local government pensioners within 1 month was unprecedented. Akinola, speaking during a monthly prayer summit of the pensioners, also appreciated the governor for presenting a bus to the union in the same month. The statement was made available in Ado-Ekiti on Thursday. The union's chairman also praised the state government free healthcare initiative for all Ekiti pensioners and the financial support for the union's guest house construction, among other welfare programs and initiatives. You're watching AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. When AM News returns, Africa Center for Disease Control endorses first locally made Mpox test. Details of these as well as foreign and sports stories coming right after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back from the break in business. The World Health Organization Regional Director for Africa, Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, says the number of people living with diabetes in the African region is projected to rise to 54 million by 2045, marking the highest predicted increase globally if urgent action is not taken. Moeti shared this in her message commemorating the 2024 World Diabetes Day, themed Breaking Barriers, Bridging Gaps. Moeti noted that the rising prevalence of diabetes in Africa is driven by factors such as urbanization, unhealthy diet, and lack of physical activities. Diabetes is a chronic, lifelong condition that results in uncontrolled blood sugar levels, either because the body cannot produce insulin or cannot effectively use the insulin it does produce. The federal government says it will collaborate with the private sector in raising a portion of the $10 billion needed to ensure the provision of consistent and reliable electricity across the country. This initiative is part of the government's broader strategy to address the country's chronic power supply challenges and is expected to span a period of 5 to 10 years. This informed the crux of the deliberation when the Director General of the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, Dr. Jobson Ewalafo, paid a courtesy visit to the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, in Abuja. A statement by the acting head of media and publicity at the ICRC, Ifeanyi Nwoko, said they do agree that in view of the funding and technical requirement needed to advance the power sector in Nigeria, it had become imperative to seek private sector input through public-private partnership in co-financing and providing expertise that will ensure optimal performance of power infrastructure. The Nigerian Customs Service says it has generated 5.7 trillion naira in revenue as of November 12, 2024. The Comptroller General of Customs, Adewale Adeniyi, disclosed this at the ongoing 2024 Comptroller General of Customs Conference in Abuja. Queen Agaba tells us more.
Nigeria Customs Service Adewale Adeniyi expressed optimism about the service's capacity to achieve more for the economy with strategic engagement and collaborative approaches. Discussing the service's strides in trade facilitation Adeniyi noted that 6 beneficiaries of the Authorized Economic Operators Program have been carefully selected. He says 21 requests have been processed under an advanced ruling program aimed at fostering quicker customs decision-making on import and export cargoes prior to their arrival at the ports. The Comptroller General also highlighted that the service's time release study has advanced the drive towards 24-hour cargo clearance and reduced dwell time at the ports. Adeniyi praised Operation Whirlwind, a joint initiative guided by the Office of the National Security Advisor and supported by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Agency, aimed at curbing fuel smuggling. The National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, applauds the service for demonstrating effective trade facilitation as well as coexist with robust regulatory compliance and improved border security.
Find our administrations believe that public institutions can effectively drive transformative change when adequately aligned with national objectives.
The 2024 CG conference is tagged Nigeria Customs Service, engaging traditional and new partners with purpose. For Global Television, Queen Agaba reporting.
The African Union's health watchdog has announced that it has endorsed an Mpox test from Morocco, describing it as a major milestone in efforts to combat the outbreak on the continent. The announcement comes 3 months after the African Center for Disease Control and Prevention declared the Mpox outbreak a public health emergency in a statement posted on X. And that's how we call it a wrap on the Global AM News. I am Anthony Momodu. Good morning.
Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Get in on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
right, welcome back. You're still watching Global Morning, Africa's finest breakfast show. And indeed, I know you've had lots of fun. It's been entertainment, a lot of information for you, and also just gone by is the Global AM News. Now, time for us to hit that discuss button where we'll talk about very salient issues making the rounds right here. And we're looking at one of the arms of government, very instrumental, talking about the judiciary. In other climes, the judiciary plays a very strategic role in ensuring that the other arms of government, especially the executive, is kept on its toes. And also, there's a balance of law and order in the country, and the respect and the implementation and upholding of the constitution of any nation judiciary has that mandate. But in Nigeria, the case seems to be the reverse, as they now play very, very interesting and intriguing roles in deciding who leads either at the state level, the governors, and when it has to do with the presidency, determining who wins or who doesn't win elections. I'm not alone for this discourse. I've got my co-anchor who is still waiting in the wings to fire all the questions he has in store, because we will be joined via Zoom by our guest, who is no other person but Kester Elebesunu, who is a lawyer and an activist, to help us look at this very interesting talking point. Before we get Kester joining us via Zoom, for you, the judiciary, would you say, yes, we used to hear the hope of the common man, but as of last night, during the desk, what the guest says is no longer the hope of the common man, but whoever has the deepest pocket has got the judiciary. That just goes to see how much tempted the judiciary has been.
Well, that is, if you say, it's relative, all right? It's relative. We cannot say holistically that everyone in the judiciary, every judicial officer is corrupt. We cannot say there are no people that have gotten justice on a platter of gold, without paying any dime. We can't say there are no human lawyers who have taken up cases that they don't even know anything about, just because the persons involved,
so probably cases
don't really have the money. You can't take that away. And having said all of that, the issue of you need to be very rich to get a lawyer for a particular case still plays out. And as a matter of fact, right from time being, you don't just get a lawyer for getting a lawyer's sake. If it is just, okay, you commit a crime, you just get a lawyer, then everybody in the society will be criminal. Okay? But then, if you know, getting a lawyer will be very difficult. I'm not talking about human lawyer. I'm not talking about activists, because there are human rights lawyers who are activists who really want the right thing to be done in the society. You've had the likes of sons like Falana coming out to say, well, this thing is not done. This is injustice and it needs to be followed to the latter. Whether you have the money or not, there are judicial officers who are willing to render their services because they know this is an inhumane treatment meted to a citizen of the country and all of that. But then the issue of inconsistency in some rulings, which we are not going into right now, also leads to what we are talking about, the rot that we are trying to talk about right now. Then the question you ask is centered on the fact that the lawyers, okay, the judiciary, which before now was known and seen as the last hope of the common man, is no longer the last hope of the common man for certain reasons, probably because some other persons are now very, very greedy, and some persons said they want to make money out of their career and they go above board, you know, to get this money. And if you don't have the money, whether the truth is there or not, they try to paint it such that their client or whoever the person is will get justice. I don't know what to call that, whether justice or injustice, because the judgment is coming because the person has a good and sound lawyer whom has been paid. All right. So these are some of the things we look at, and the Nigerian people, some of the common men, the common people will tell you, well, judiciary is no longer the hope of the common man.
All right, time is going to tell if the judiciary is the hope of the common man or not, but that's what we're trying to achieve, to ensure that the judiciary is purged of its bad leanings. And also, we've seen issues play out. We're still seeing what is playing out in the Kano Emirates tussle, where there were loads of conflicting judgments of a court of the same jurisdiction, giving very diverse judgment as regards one particular case. We've seen that also still playing out what is happening in Rivers State, where there were loads of judgments, and the last one, which seemed to have, if not broken, but bent the camel's back, was when there was a ruling demanding that the Nigerian police force withdraw its personnel in the upcoming election, talking about the local government election, which did show that there was something really amiss. The fact that the Nigerian police force agreed to that rulings and adhered to that rulings because it favored who had given them that order made it very disturbing. Also, the judgment where also the Central Bank of Nigeria was instructed not to release the fundings of Rivers State also made it very controversial. All right, let's get talking to our guest. We've got Kester Elebe Sunu, who is a lawyer and activist, joining us via Zoom. Kester, good morning. Thank you for joining us on Global Morning. Kester, can you hear us? All right, we're trying to establish a contact with Kester Elebe Sunu, who is an activist and a lawyer, to help us look at issues making the round. All right, I think we should go for a very quick break. When we return from this break, obviously it will be time for us to quickly see how we can get one or two comments from Kester as regards how to stop the rot in the judiciary. Stay with us. Welcome back from that quick break. Just trying to dot the I's and cross the T's. Now we've got, we have the judiciary, we're spoiled for choice. We've got our Chair Emmanuel, who's also a lawyer and activist, making inroads and joining us now via Zoom. Chair Emmanuel, thank you for making it to the program. Good morning, and how is the family and Benin State doing?
We are good. We are good to hear your voice. Good to see you again after a long time. First of all, I need to apologize for joining you late. You know, this technology, they are not totally reliable. So I try to see how I can log in, and we had that cheating problem. However, it's better here than never at all.
All right. We know that lawyers are very skillful. Technicalities is the name of the game when you give your conflicting rulings. Let's look at the talking points. We're looking at tackling the rot in the judiciary. I'm not alone, first of all, not to forget the fact that I've got your statesman here, Ramsey Enoch Agbo, sitting by my side, looking like Aliyah. Governor Aliyah by my side. So both of us will be tackling you this morning. We know you're very skillful. So tell us, do you think it's possible to end the rot in the judiciary?
Well, that question is neither here nor there. If I'm going to be very affirmative to say yes, it is possible, then I have to provide solutions on how it's going to be possible. If I said no, it is not going to be possible, then I have to leave the green light on how the difficulty will lead to impossibility. However, as a lawyer, I know that there must be an end to every impossibility. The rot, of course, is not what anybody can shy away from, including those of us who are in practice. We are not proud of some of the things we see happening in the judiciary. But that is not to mean that the judiciary has lost its content, its vibrancy, its biting power as the last hope of the common man. It has not lost that. It is still doing justice. Save for the fact that some judgments coming from the court are perceived as unacceptable in the eyes of the common man. For most of us, we think we have done enough in private and in public, in committee sections, and then even in different fora to ensure that the government of the day draws its attention to some of the entrenched practices that leads to corruption. Now look at the recruitment of judges. How do you explain a situation where senior judges, justices of the Supreme Court, of the Court of Appeal, are allowed to nominate their children, their relations, their brothers, to replace them at the lower court, so that there could be a succession? It has become like a business hierarchy, so that there could be a succession in the judiciary. Whereas some of the best brains who are supposed to sit on the bench and churn out decisions that will be of useful and timeless importance to Nigeria are being left out of the screening process. How do you explain that? Look at those at the bench. They are either related to one former justice or judge of the court, and so on and so forth. Now, coming to the judiciary itself, how do you explain the kind of intervention that some of the people in the executive section, particularly the so-called Wike, how do you explain the kind of grip that some people are perceived to hold on the judges? I mean, outside God, it is what the court says that gives you life or death. And this is not one of the arms that should be joked with at all. And so some of these issues, they are entrenched, they are traditional corruption that need to be uprooted. We are suggesting that the Attorney General of the Federation should not be the same as the Minister of Justice. There should be an office for the Attorney General of the Federation, which is different from the Minister of Justice. Because as an Attorney General and then a Minister of Justice, you are in the executive trying to, midwife the influence of the executive on the judiciary. And these two are arms of government that should not naturally be together on all issues. But when you have a Minister of Justice and Attorney General who is a senior lawyer but a member of the executive, there's no how he will not have influence on the judiciary. And then we have canvassed there should be glaringly total clear-cut independence of the judiciary. What do we see? Only recently, Wike is building residences for judges. He who pays the piper, he takes the tune. If you are giving them accommodation, certainly you will visit them and ask them for something. I mean, these are not the kind of things we expect. And that has affected down to the lower ranks of those who are working in that institution. Look at Wike. His wife is also a judge. You understand? So, I mean, there are retinue and panoply of reasons why it will be difficult. But if the Nigerian system agrees to uproot some of these issues that I have enumerated, then the rot will be to a certain extent curtailed, and we will see a vibrant, new and very effective judiciary like we have elsewhere in the United States, in Canada, and in other civilized countries of the world.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister Oche, for that very wonderful one. Let me ask you this question now, because from what you've said so far, it means there is an interference by the executive or people in governance, and that has affected the judiciary to an extent. That's for people who have been appointed. But what we're talking about right now is not even the people at the top alone. Most persons who are judicial officers have this issue of you need to have enough money to get a lawyer to win a case. And it's part of the reason why some Nigerians are saying the judiciary is no longer the hope of the common man. You're talking about the people in authority, the people who are whining and dining with people in governance. What about the people who are not yet in power, because this thing doesn't just start in a day. It starts from somewhere. That is one. And then my second question is this: is there any body responsible for checkmating the activity of judicial officers in case they fault in carrying out their activities? And have there been people who have been reprimanded in the past that you can let us know?
Yes, I will start in that order. First, whether this rot can also be curtailed from the angle of lawyers, maybe their exorbitant charges and so on. Let me say here that the body can only follow the head. It is where the head goes to that the body follows. And he who goes to sleep with his scratching anus will definitely come out with his smelling hands, smelling fingers. The truth of the matter is that we cannot be talking about the attitude of lawyers or litigants without first looking at those who control the general perception of that institution. I mean, the lawyers are always there. There are lawyers in different categories, depending on which of them you want to hire. You hire according to your resources. Definitely, even at that, for some of us lawyers, we have formed pro bono groups. In the federal government on its own have the Legal Aid Council, where lawyers go to render free services, depending on what you are accused of. There are several times we have had to go to the prisons to adjudicate for people who were detained unlawfully, awaiting trial, people whose case should have been decided even on the spot, people who have no reason to be in the prisons. I mean, there are many times we have gone to the prison to do that without getting paid. That's what we call pro bono. But then, these are not the major issues. These are not the problem. It is those who have the power to untwist the system, those who have the power to untwist those who should churn out judgments that are the problem of that institution. Because those at the lower rung, they look at those at the higher rung. What is their body language? It is only when their body language suggests that there is need for them to untwist the younger ones. That is when that's when corruption can persist. So I have to attack from the top. Lawyers are not the challenge. Lawyers are there to render their services, and you pay according to the service you want. You pay according to the lawyer you can hire. And there are retinue and panoply of instances where some lawyers will have to even beat below the bed just because they are interested in the matter. They're interested in ensuring that justice prevails in the matter. I have done that severally, and many other lawyers have done that severally. So you have to excuse the lawyers from this rot, because lawyers, by the way, are not even primarily part of the judiciary. We are like a support to them. We are not in the bench. We are not in the judiciary per se. Okay? So having said that, whether there are institutions that reprimand judges, there are. The National Judicial Commission, the NJC, is one of the institutions that is empowered to review, investigate, and possibly prescribe punishment for erring judicial officers. And they have done that. There have been many instances where judges have been suspended, where judges have been even removed outrightly, where punitive measures have been meted on judges. As lawyers, we also have the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee, that if you are found wanting in your professional ethics, the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee is empowered by by our laws as lawyers to prescribe punishment accordingly with respect to the offense you have committed. So there are retinue and panoply of instances where the National Judicial Commission has punished erring judicial officers. But we must not end there. We must not end there. Churning out judgment and ensuring that the judiciary lives above board should be a habit, and not a sort of hand-picking instances where you then choose and pick who to favor and who not to favor. It should be a habit. It should be a closed system that no lawyer No judge, no justice can circumvent. But what we have today, it appears as if there is a conspiracy against the system itself not to do the proper thing. The laws are not the problem. It is the operators of the law that are the problem.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that is quite understandable. When you started by saying the body cannot do anything outside the head, meaning the head still dictates what the body does. That's what you're trying to say. But now, don't you think it is a slap on the judicial officers for them to be regulated by maybe some persons at the head? Because at their level, judiciary is one system that is held at a very high esteem. If they are being allowed to be used by people at the top, even though they know what is happening is wrong, don't you think that is a bad thing and a bad image making for the judiciary?
Let me tell you, even the blind man who does not see knows that a bad judgment from a court has the capacity of changing the benefits, the beauty of the entire world. The blind man who does not see has the capacity to know that a bad judgment has the capacity of changing the beauty of the world. The deaf who cannot hear sees the consequence and hears the consequence of a bad judgment. That is to mean that a bad judgment from a court affects everybody irrespective of your condition. And for us to ask whether we don't know if it's a slap on the judiciary to allow, top people in offices, senior people in offices to influence them, it's like taking coal to Newcastle. We know, everybody knows. Let me tell you, if a bad judgment is given today, the position of the court is that that judgment must be respected. You can't change it. A judgment is what it is. You can't change it no matter how bad it is, unless another court changes it. Imagine if such judgment is given by the Supreme Court. It becomes what we call stare decisis, a precedent, until that same Supreme Court decides to sit again and change it. You can imagine what such judgment would have cost. Look, a medical doctor's mistake may kill one person. Maybe you prescribe the wrong drug to one patient and by accident, God forbid, the patient dies. But a judgment of the court has a generational consequence. And any judgment that is procured, you can imagine what it is. Any bad judgment, you can imagine what it is. Generational consequence, because it becomes a precedent on which other judgments must be accentuated. So it is a dangerous thing.
All right.
I think you're still talking. The network is frozen.
All right. We hope we'll be able to re-establish contact with our chairman because we need to now we've seen what the challenges or the rot is, but it's now we need to get what the solutions, the measures and strategies to cleanse this rot in the judiciary. It's the aim of the program. So we're hoping once we re-establish contact with our chairman, he'll be able to tell us the way forward as a way to end the rot. But while we're trying to re-establish contact with him, for you, he said he cannot categorically say we can end the rot. Do you think it can be stopped completely if the judiciary deliberately decides to clean itself, purge itself of interference by the political class and the bad eggs within the system?
Well, one thing leads to the other. All this thing boils down to corruption. What is the root of corruption? Do people just get corrupt? Were people corrupted from birth? These are the kind of questions we should be asking. Okay. So many times, a lot of people think about the damage control. But some of us who do research, what we do is you need to know the root cause of a particular problem before you start profiling solutions.
To get the antidote.
Yes. So as it is right now, the people involved in this, why are they involved? Number one, some persons are naturally greedy. Some persons want to satisfy the human wants by all means. Some persons want to be in a particular class that is not even their time yet to be in that class. You heard what he said. He said, for you to get a lawyer, lawyers are in category. Depending based on how much you have.
Don't you think that, for me, because that was going to be my next question to Chair as we wrap up, don't you think that's where the problem is? Because when you begin to classify judges and lawyers, indirectly what it means that the higher judges you get, it means when they get to the courtroom, these are naturally the ones the judges would respect, because obviously he knows, okay, this is senior advocate of Nigeria coming to my court to present a case, and this is the other lawyer is just a fresher from school and who doesn't necessarily know his.
No, Anthony, there's a way these things are being done. A law is a law. And that's why if you get to the court of law, they begin to quote laws. Yes. Okay, section this, subsection this. Then they begin to refer to cases that have been handled before.
I understand that. I'm not arguing that. But what I'm saying is, it's like you've got someone who works like for our industry. Someone comes from Al Jazeera. And you have someone who comes from a private sector unknown from even a state level. It's only natural that you know that this person comes with a wealth of experience, exposure, and obviously has a better grasp of this industry. And you go to the court of law. There's no gainsaying that this person
I think I know what you're trying to say.
There is so if you're able to hire such a person, it's going to be difficult for you to win the case against this other person. So that's where the angle I'm coming. Okay, let's before we get into our argument, because I think we're always on. It's always Liverpool, Manchester United every time we. Okay, Ocho Emmanuel, thank you for rejoining us on Zoom.
Thank you.
All right, we need you to come to our help here. I and Ramsey were almost at each other's throat. We're saying, don't you think, because we're looking for the measures now and the way out to help the judiciary in order to help ourselves. Don't you think that the fact that we've got classes of lawyers makes it even more, brings about the corruption? Because if you have, I'm able to hire a senior advocate of Nigeria to come defend me in the court of law, and Ramsey cannot hire a lawyer who is SAN, and we go to a chief judge. Who is the judge likely to listen to? Yes, we know we're going to do court laws and references, but that status image, doesn't it affect, that court of law when in the courts?
Having upper hand, who is going to have the
based
upper
on the
hand?
experience, and also not forgetting that he must have gone through that judge several times and won cases in that judge's court before then.
Okay, I'm happy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
I'm happy you started off by saying that you and Ramsey were at each other's throat. It's better to be at your throat than to be at your jugular.
Oh boy!
So it's a better condition to be at the moment, right? Now the issue of a senior advocate and a non-senior advocate. Senior advocate is a rank that is obtained in the legal practice after having committed certain years of practice or having met certain criteria that may be set out by the committee that awards the rank. It does not expressly say that because you are a senior advocate, you are more experienced than a non-senior advocate. And let me tell you that the bulk of the cases that are prepared from a senior advocate's court are largely prepared by non-senior advocates in that office, in the senior advocate's office. And so, yes, as a senior advocate, you carry an embodiment. You sit as a privileged lawyer in the court. You have certain rights you enjoy over a non-senior advocate. But that does not define your intellectual capacity to win a matter. having judgment in a court is a matter of how you prepare your matter, the authorities you relied on, and your respect to the extant rules of court and laws that guide such a field that you are trying to cover in the case. And so, the rank does not confer automatic victory. The rank does not confer automatic pressure. Yes, the judge might know him, they might be friends, but let me tell you, if not for the situation we find ourselves in the country, the judge is supposed to be like Julius Caesar. He's supposed to be above the influence, above the command, above the whip, above the whims, above the caprices of any human being, because the court outside God is the next authority of the land. And so, the judge does not look at your rank. The judge does not look at your personality. The judge looks at the matter before him, looks at the motions, your argument, your brief of argument. I mean, all the things that makes up your matter. That is what gives you judgment. That is what the judge used to arrive at judgment in favor or against. And by the way, even when a lawyer loses a matter in court, for us lawyers, it is not a loss. You have only strengthened that part of our judicial jurisprudence. So for me, people who are not lawyers may have that feelings. All you need to do is to search and get a lawyer whom you think is vast in the area that you want him to litigate for you. All litigants are at liberty to search and get a lawyer who is vast, very experienced in the areas of want. Not just going to any lawyer and ask him. Sometimes when you go to the wrong lawyer, you pay him very small money. You also get very poor results because you pay very small money. Nothing good comes easy. And so the idea of being a senior advocate can easily win your matter only exists in the mind of non-lawyers. And of course, if you are not a senior advocate, but you are vast in law, you can always win the senior advocate in argument. We have done it before. It is not a new thing.
All right, let's round up of our conversation for the want of time, because we've got other guests lined up. So, can you tell us the way forward? Which are the measures and strategies that we can use to curb these excesses in the judiciary?
One, the Attorney General of the Federation should not double as a Minister of Justice. That office should be shared, should be separated. Two, the executive should unduly restrain themselves from interfering in the affairs of the judiciary. There should be total and practical independence of the judiciary. Not this type that Wike will be rushing and defending aimlessly the decision of the executive to build. I mean, why don't you put such budget in the budget of the judiciary and allow them to build for themselves? I mean, and then, yes, please. I mean, there are retinue and part of
We'd like you to wrap up as soon as possible so that we can hit the brakes.
I wish this conversation will continue again, because these are some of the issues that touch on the lives of every Nigerian. But for want of time, I may not be able to go, because I need to stress every point that I have to elaborate here. I have to stress every point. And the judiciary, I ought to...
Okay, do you know what? Let's go for a quick break. You will rejoin us again so that you have the opportunity to stress the other points so that we get a very balanced analysis. All right, let's go for a very quick break. When we return from the break, we'll be looking at seeing how he will be wrapping up. Then we'll be taking our other guests as we look at other issues also making the rounds. Stay with us.
Is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen. Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofrebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Get in on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofrebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Get in on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Africa's Finest Breakfast Show, Global Morning, and we're still talking with a lawyer and activist, Oche Emmanuel, as he breaks it down, the measures and the way forward to end the rot in the judiciary. Oche Emmanuel, thank you for rejoining us on Global Morning. All right, Oche, let's look at you about listing out the measures to ensure that the judiciary is purged of its own mess. So go ahead and continue. You mentioned, first of all, the sharing of powers.
I've mentioned first that the Office of Attorney General should not be the same as the Office of the Minister for Justice. What we have now, and it is a constitutional issue, is that we have the Minister for Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, one man manning that same office. these two offices should be separated so that a member of the executive is not seen as supervising the judiciary. The judiciary should be totally seen, heard, and practically observed to be independent, truly independent. And I've also said that brings us to the other issue, independence of the judiciary. For instance, why would the executive be building residence for judges and justices? Such budget should be encapsulated in the budget of the judiciary. They should be the one to do that for themselves. And then we look at expansion of courtrooms. Our courtrooms are limited. There should be more courtrooms to accommodate more litigants. Then we also look at the welfare of our judges and judicial officers. What is the welfare of our judicial officers compared to the mouth-watering offers that politicians and people in high places give to them? Now, once we have a comparable and a fairly good welfare for our judicial officers, particularly those, when I even talk about judicial, I'm looking at from the very small, the area courts, the magistrate courts, those lower courts. They are the eyes, they are the impression of the judiciary. Because a magistrate court, a magistrate who gives a wrong judgment, creates a wrong impression of the judiciary in the eyes of the local or the litigant. And so, from that lower level, the welfare of our magistrates, our judges, and our justices should be a priority, to our budget. And there should be enough funding to the judiciary to enable them carry out all their needs without necessarily going cap in hand to beg the executive. Because you and me, we know that he who pays the piper dictates the tune. If the executive are the one deciding what money goes to the judiciary at every point in time when they need this money, of course, they can influence their thinking, influence their body language, and then influence the judgment. And I have said here that every bad judgment has a generational consequence because it is a law and it is going to form a precedent on which several other judgments will be relied upon. And so, once some of these things are given serious attention to, we will find a fairly reliable, good judicial system that the people can be proud of. The type that we see elsewhere in other civilized countries, and we say once judgment is given, that is judgment. For instance, we just had an election in the United States. The presidential candidate and the members of the Democratic Party, they came up to accept it. And in fact, Kamala Harris said, this is the beauty of their democracy. If you lose the election, you accept it. Because that is the voice of the people. But here, if you lose the election, you have to go to court and get it from the court. What does it portend? The court should not give power to people. Power should come from the people. Power should come from electorate, not from the courts. And so some of this malfeasance and all this unnecessary influence, once it is removed, will give us the judiciary of our dream.
All right, I guess that's your last questions.
Yeah, now at this end, what can we say is the hope of the common man right now? Because the common man before now were being made to understand that the judiciary is their last hope. For every average Nigerian, from what you have said, what can now be the hope of the common man?
The hope of the common man is still the court. Remove law and order from the society and anarchy will prevail. Anarchy will prevail to the extent that you can't sit in that office comfortably and do your job. Big brothers will stand on the way and collect your cap, your wrist, and nothing will happen. So it is only when there is a fear that if I do this, law and order still exists. That is the only way we can still have hope in our lives and in our system. So the court is still the hope of the common man. But
a little network glitch there. I think he said he has affirmed that the court is still the hope of the common man. Thank you very much, Oche Emmanuel, for that analysis. Well, but then the court is still the hope of the common man, or else there will be anarchy everywhere. People will take laws into their hands. And of course, you and I will not have a smooth society. The society will be worse than it is right now. Thank you very much, Oche Emmanuel.
All right, we'll quickly go for a quick break. When we return from this quick break, we've got 15 minutes to talk to Ali Shatta, who will be looking at issues of the tax reforms, and also he'll be also looking at the oil and gas sector, what is the benefits of the direct sale from the Dangote refinery to the marketers. This we'll do in 15 minutes after this quick break. Stay with us.
Is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
welcome back from the break. It's now time for us to reach the business end of Global Money this morning. So we'll be looking at tax reforms, the socio-economic benefit of the present tax reforms being proposed by President Bola Tinubu, even though it has caused a lot of heated debate that seemed to pitch some regions of the country against the other, talking about the North versus the rest of the regions. We've got in the studio an economist who has skills in money business and money issues. We've got Issa Ali Shatta in the studio to help us look at this and probably focus on the benefit it's going to come to Nigeria as a nation rather than the regions of the country. Issa, nice to have you in the studios.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Yeah, you're looking like money.
You too.
All right, then let's look at it. Is there true benefit that's going to accrue to the nation as a country, us as a people, and as a government, rather than this looking like it's against North versus the South?
Of course, if you look at it globally, anywhere you have tax reform and you have what is the tax reform end result is to earn more. It's for the government to earn more and to generate more revenue into the coffers. Of course, there are a lot of multiplier effects that will come as a way of benefit if it is properly tracked and managed. But you know, in our own climb here, we all know what happens. You know, sometimes probably because of lack of deployment of technology, we are unable to detect or to know exactly, you know, how much we generate. But with the current tax reform, I am aware that we have, you know, improved the process, and we have also injected technology into deepening and widening the process, while we, you know, bring in a lot of people into the tax net, right? So the benefits, of course, will come in way of development. We've been talking about electricity, which is power supply. We've been talking about energy, which is our petroleum. We've been talking about education. We have been talking about health, good healthcare delivery system. We've been talking about good road networks, right? These are all the benefits that are supposed to come, you know, with the impact of tax. Ordinarily, we are supposed to all have a social safety card, where if I'm paying my tax, I should be able to access certain facilities, you know, without necessarily paying for them. And like I've said, in our own climb, we don't really have any metrics to really, you know, gauge whether I am even benefiting from the tax that, you know, I contribute, you know, to Nigeria. So it's sort of painful, you know, when you look at the residual effect, when you also look at the impact of force to business. If you look at it currently, there are a lot of businesses that are folded up. You know, there are multiple taxation, although the current reform claimed to have harmonized all of the tax processes. But yes, we've seen the reform on paper, but let's see it implemented. You know, until we begin to see it implemented from 2025, you know, as you know, projected by the Chairman Committee on Tax Reform, who I think was a former KPMG, you know, product. So let's see how those reforms will translate to tangible development over time.
All right, the issue, what do you think once this bill was sent to the, even when it was sent to the National Assembly, it was quick to cause a divide between the North and the West and some other parts. What is the key issue there that resource about setting the people who generate these, where the natural resources coming from, not benefiting as much as those who consume it on the other part of the country?
Yeah, you see, probably I think there's a miscommunication or misinformation somewhere. But there has to be some alignment of some sort, so that even by the time you are bringing out reforms like these, critical stakeholders, which I believe they would have done, critical stakeholders would have been on the table to at least peruse all of those items that are contained in the reform. So this is where, you know, you have open room to dialogue, you have open room to negotiate, you also have open room to suggest and make some tweaks, you know, to the reform. I want to believe that, you know, that was done. If that wasn't done and it was taken straight to the National Assembly, and there was also no proper, you know, education or no proper enlightenment as to how it's going to be implemented, you are bound to see, such recourse. But from what I know, I think it's actually mutually beneficial to all, because it's even been stated that prior before now, where consumers are and where those residual VAT are being generated, they don't really account for those states. It accounts for where the organization is headquartered. But right now, that has been sort of tweaked to say anywhere, any state that generates more of those, VAT will have more percentage. So there's a percentage split. I can't wrap my head around all the figures.
Yeah.
But I know that there's a percentage split by performance. So I think this reform would actually drive performance and reduce redundancy in such a way that right now you need to make your economy grow, right? If you have a lot of insecurity in your state and you are not generating enough, to be able to meet up and contribute, to the cover, then the percentage that comes to you will definitely be lesser because you're not thinking outside the box. I've said this on this platform several times. Now we have a lot of governors who are not thinking outside the box. They just want to sit down, let FAC allocation comes in, and it's not rule as usual. We don't have free money anywhere, and as they can see, everybody is tightening their belt, and that is the reason why you as a governor have to think as a CEO of an organization, right? You don't just rail out budget and you call it budget of sustainability, budget of productivity,
just give it names.
But you need to be able to tangibly attach the budget to growth mechanisms. You need to be able to look at those comparative advantages that you have in your state that you can use to create economic activities and generate more of this revenue to come in. Then when reforms like this come, of course, naturally they will benefit you. Why? Because you are generating more into the ecosystem. You are just not sitting redundant and thinking that somebody who is doing his own homework somewhere is going to be doing more of the work while you are doing more of the spending. I think that era has actually passed. It's time for us to actually look at things critically and begin to ask ourselves, those silent questions. How did we get to this point? We got to this point because, foundationally, we are not actually doing the right thing, right? But right now, we need to be able to put all those metrics, in place, put all the list items of, those track record that we want to see in terms of development and growth. Then we should be able to be taking it one after the other to say, and that's exactly the KPI we're supposed to be using to measure the performances of these
the key performance
indicators, right? Okay. To measure these politicians in office. I'm happy now that even local governments have autonomy. So we need to have these KPIs that we can use that drills down from all the different arms of government, from of course the executive to the legislature and of course to the judiciary, then of course at the same time federal government, the state government and the local government. We need to have that harmonious relationship that can actually transform to good economic growth.
Okay, the final question will be with all this back and forth and some lawmakers already said that bill is dead on arrival. What will be the watchword to ensure that this bill is supported? Because even the federal government seemed already determined to see it go through. Is there a guarantee that at the end of the day, every sector or every region is going to benefit?
Yeah, so that was what I said earlier, in my speech, when I said if they have not done it, which I believe they have done it, ab initio, in bringing critical stakeholders to come together. So before you can have a buy-in into any reform, you need to be able to, bring all the critical stakeholders together so that they have a sense of belonging. And even if, right, the reform is going to be a positive one or a project, if they feel that they were left out, so people can deliberately truncate the process and to ensure that they frustrate you, right? But you need to do your homework, ensure that you get the critical gatekeepers, right, influencers, people who can definitely, help you project the gains rather than the pains, that the reforms you know, I don't want to use the acronym here. So, but let's focus more on the gains. But the only way you can do that, like, is to bring all these stakeholders together and ensure that they have, you know, a sense of belonging, and ensure that they also have a voice, you know, in the reform, so that everybody can jealously guide that reform to execution. If you have not done that, then definitely you are going to have a lot of kickbacks and a lot of pushback rather.
Yeah.
That we are having today.
Okay, on the final terms, in terms of the ordinary Nigerian, there's this fear that the tax is going to affect the ordinary Nigerian. It means they're going to take from their minimum wage and all that. Can you confirm if this new tax form is targeted at the elites and luxury goods rather than those at the lower cadre?
Yes, so that's exactly what has been said. You know, we've heard about the 15% VAT, you know, for luxury items. So, but how do you quantify what a luxury item is? Right. I can be taking my swan water every time, and you tell me that swan water is a luxury item. Now, why shouldn't I take pure water or take dispenser water rather? Right. So we need to be able. They need to be able to be specific, you know, with the terms and with the categories of who will be taxed, so that everybody is clear on that. As to whether it's targeted at the people at the lowest or the bottom of the pyramid, you know,
we're told they will be exempted
from payee.
Yeah.
Yes, anybody that is at the category of a minimum wage is exempted from payee. But there is consumption tax, of course, that you cannot be exempted from. So for everything that you do, even if you are taxing, you know, the companies or you are taxing those above, they definitely will pass that tax down to the final consumer, right? And this is where it gets a bit trickier, because if, for instance, you know, let me even give you a typical example. You increase fuel pump price, right? The commercial motorcycle riders or the commercial drivers go to get fuel, but they put that burden on the passengers who are going to board those vehicles. So indirectly or directly, they are also feeling the pain, even though they are the one that are being taxed directly. So there's definitely the person who would, the last man on the street, would definitely be feeling much of the pain, because we go to the same market. They don't have a different market, right? We go to the same hospitals, right? Even if you don't go to the same school, of course you still go to, you know, a school that is in the same community. So you definitely have that last mile consumer tax that you are going to pay. So whether you like it or not, directly or indirectly, everybody is going to definitely feel it.
All right, and that well said, and that's how much time is going to allow us to take. I want to say a big thank you to Issa Ali Shatta, economist, and for joining us in the studio and helping us diffuse that tension as regards the proposed new tax reforms. Hopefully, in the coming days and weeks, we'll be having him join us more to break it further down to the barest minimum. That's how we'll call it a wrap on today's edition of the program, Global Morning. My name is Anthony Momodi, and on behalf of my co-anchor, in the person of Ramsey Enoch Agbo, we want to say thank you for joining us from 7 a.m. till this very moment, where we say our goodbyes and wishing you a very fantastic Friday and weekend ahead. Good morning.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle with ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.